Hey guys, today I'm going to finish up part 2 of the video I did about Uvalde and the second Eclipse. And it's only about a 7-minute video, 8-minute video, so if you want to go back and watch that video that I did a couple weeks ago, you'll have a little bit better, you'll have a lot better understanding of what I'm showing here. But let's do a quick recap of what I talked about in that first part 1 video. I showed you guys that Uvalde, Texas is in the path of the 2024 total solar eclipse, and it forms an X with the 2023 annular eclipse. October 14th, 2023, there's an annular eclipse, and that path crosses through the United States, enters in Oregon, the 33rd state, exits directly over Corpus Christi, Texas. I showed you how this was a Christ ritual. Corpus Christi means body of Christ. Oregon, the 33rd state, right? Christ died when he's 33. The alleged shooter, Salvador is a reference to Christ. Salvare means to save, bestowed in honor of Christ. And part 2 is going to be about how these two shootings, I referenced the Buffalo shooting, the Dayton shooting, and the Uvalde shooting. And if we go from the Dayton shooting on August 4th, 2019 to the Uvalde shooting, it was 33 months, 21 days. And 3321 is the magic square of the moon, and we're told the moon occults the sun during an eclipse. And I showed you how the path of the 2024 eclipse, we have the Buffalo shooting, the Dayton shooting, and then we had Uvalde, all in the path of the 2024 total eclipse. I had a few subscribers that pointed out that Waco also fell on the path of the eclipse. Dallas, the assassination of JFK, in the path of the 2024 solar eclipse, as well as the previous assassinated president who was assassinated in Buffalo, New York as well, McKinley, in the path of the 2024 solar eclipse. So this upcoming total solar eclipse in 2024, many rituals fall on this path, and the last 3 major shootings, I guess you'd call it, Dayton to Uvalde, 33 months, 21 days, total span, 3321, magic square of the moon. And now I'm going to show you how these rituals in part 2 here are all about the twin identity that you have. And it's almost like this twin identity, these twin eclipses, like there's 2 eclipses, just like there's you have 2 identities. Now, the 2 days after the Uvalde shooting, we had the death of the actor Ray Liotta. And Ray Liotta, he starred in a movie, or he was in a movie called Identity, and it all connects here. And take a look at Ray Liotta real quick. He died on the 26th of May, 2 days after Uvalde. Ray, right, like ray of light. And he died in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. And Santo Domingo is named after Saint Dominic, the patron saint of astronomers. Right, Ray Liotta, like a ray of light, the sun. 2 days after Uvalde. Uvalde was an eclipse ritual. 33rd state, body of Christ, exits here, Corpus Christi. Everything here in this little time period with Ray Liotta. And I'll show you how it has to do with identity and the twins. Super quick recap on the twin names that you have. When you're born, parents grant you a name. That's the title that you carry through your life. except your parents register your name. Register means give to the king. So they give legal title to your name to the state. The state gives you another name on the certificate of birth. And that name looks just like the name that your parents granted to you, except it's in all capital letters. And how this works with the twin identity is that your parents name you, the baby, when you're born. They give you the name, but when you're born, a complete delivery of the technical definition of a complete delivery is the baby and the placenta. Take a look at the definition here. Medical definition of delivery: the procedure of assisting birth of a fetus and expulsion of the placenta, the expulsion or extraction of a fetus and its membranes. So a complete delivery is both baby and placenta. Okay, and what happens is the placenta is considered lost or abandoned property, and the state can claim lost or abandoned property. So this name that they give you after your parents have it registered is based on this dead or dying membrane called the placenta. So when you identify yourself as your name, you're identifying as a dead or dying object. And this technical name, or one of the names, is the presumed decedent estate. So just by answering to your name, you identify as this dead or dying membrane, or the placenta, because your parents gave legal title to your real name, to your granted name, away. And that's how this whole system works. This whole system is based on what you identify as. The whole system sees you as this dead entity, because right now we live in a death-based system. Okay, so that's just a quick recap on your identity, the two different identities you have. Your granted name, and then the name that the state gives you. And you can correct this on a case-by-case basis if you ever need to. And there's also a permanent correction method, which is, I have found to be easier said than done, but there is a way to correct this. But that's the twin identities we're talking about. The baby and the placenta are one complete delivery, and if we look at the definition or the etymology of placenta, in Latin, placenta means uterine cake or flat cake because it has the round shape of an afterbirth. So when you celebrate your birthday, you have a cake. You're celebrating the dead entity. And you put a candle on the cake, and you blow out the candle, so you're blowing out your divine spark. Your divine spark was granted to you about 39 weeks before you were born, when your mother and father's DNA come together and form the zygote. That's when you're granted the divine spark. It's at the zygote that establishes the DNA signature that you are today. And this precedes the birth. So you're granted the divine spark about 39 weeks before you're born. But then when you're born into this death-based system. They get you to celebrate, your birthday, the cake, the placenta, the dead entity, blow out the divine spark. But it's all about these twin names. Taking a look at a definition here before we get going with how Uvalde and Buffalo were about these twin identities. So if we look at identity in the Black's Law here, it means sameness. The fact that a subject, person, or thing before a court is the same as it is represented, claimed, or charged to be. And what that means is just by answering to your name, you identify as this object, as the presumed decedent, unless you make the correction. right? Because your parents registered your name and gave it to the state. So you'll, unless you correct it on a case-by-case basis or permanently, anytime you answer to your name in the system that we live in now, they identify you as this dead entity, right? It means sameness, right? Just by answering to your name, that's how they got us. Okay, so let's take a look at the Uvalde shooting and the rest of the Christ ritual with the shooter. Right, I showed you guys Salvador means to save in honor of Christ. Here's the Instagram picture of Salvador Ramos. You can see they have the yellow circle behind his head, just like they always show the yellow circle or the yellow sun behind Christ's head. Right? And if you were to look at this like an eclipse, the way the head is inside the eclipse would be analogous to the annular eclipse, right? Where the annular eclipse, you get to see a little bit of the body of the sun. The moon doesn't completely occult the sun and expose only the corona. An annular eclipse leaves a ring around the sun, just like here. So these depictions of Christ are analogous to an annular eclipse, as opposed to a total solar eclipse where you have a completely occulted sun where only the corona is visible. So there's that part of the ritual. To finish up with the sun and Christ ritual here with the eclipse, being that the Uvalde is in the path of the X eclipses formed by the April 8th, 2024 eclipse and the October 14th, 2023 annular eclipse. So that finishes that ritual. But let's look at the town of Uvalde and what it has to do with the name. Uvalde is a city in the county seat of Uvalde County, Texas. Population 15,217. Now, I believe there was maybe a couple channels that pointed this out, but I know Lambda 115 did a video with the 15,217. So we'll take a look at it. Oh, I already have it plugged in there. It's the 1776th prime. So that's the population of Uvalde. And if we look at how Uvalde was named, Uvalde was founded in 1853 as the town of Encina, but was renamed in 1856 as Uvalde. Its name is a misspelling of the Spanish governor Juan de Ugalde. Right? Juan de Ugalde, later referred to erroneously as Juan de Uvalde. Right? So there's a reference. Right? There's a difference between these two names. All capitals, upper, lower, proper name. Right? It's misstyled, misspelled. Just like the location of the last shooting. Uvalde, named after a guy named Ugalde erroneously. Now we're going to go to the 2022 Buffalo shooting about 10 days before. 10 days before the Uvalde shooting in Buffalo, New York. And the ritual with the names here, or I should say the names, the reference to the twin identities is found in the speech by President Biden. This is his remarks on the Buffalo shooting. We're going to look at the first 3 victims that he references in this remarks about this shooting here. The speech, Celestine Cheney, 65 years old, brain cancer survivor, churchgoer, bingo player, went to buy strawberries to make her favorite shortcake. Right, the cake. Another reference to the placenta. Okay. Now we'll take a look at the third guy here, Andre McNeil. Worked at a restaurant, went to buy his 3-year-old son a birthday cake. Right, another cake reference. Now the second victim here is kind of interesting too, because a beloved daughter and sister moved back home to help take care of her brother after his bone marrow transplant. Right, bone marrow, right? That's like your richest part of your the blood of your body, the most nutrient rich. It's like, you know, it's kind of like the blood or the body of Christ ritual, like the blood of Christ, right? It's like your most dense and important source of like your blood in your body. So we have the references to the cake and then the blood, right? And then we have the fourth guy here, fourth girl, dressed up in costumes, right? Costume, right? Just like this other guy's, it's a mask. Like your twin identity is a mask. Anyways, so 2 references to cake, and then we have the addresses of the shooting as well. Let's take a look at the Buffalo shooting, 1275 Jefferson Avenue. Take a look at Jesus Christ in Gematria, the Jewish cipher, 1275. And then something that Lambda 115 pointed out in my last video. Robb Elementary School, the Uvalde, 715 was the address. Right, 715. Great American Eclipse, if we do the anagram. GAE 715, right? It's in the path of the X eclipse, the second great American eclipse. So thanks to Lambda for pointing that out to me. And Bobby Simpson had pointed out the 1275. It's interesting too that 1275 is also the 50th triangular number, right? We have 50 states. Okay. So like I said here, we had Ray Liotta. He passed away 2 days after Uvalde, died in Santo Domingo, a town named after St. Dominic, the patron saint of astronomers. Ray Liotta, ray of light, another reference to the sun. And he was in a movie back in 2003 called Identity. And all these screenshots that I have are from like the first 5 to 10 minutes of the movie. It's actually like the first 3 minutes that establish exactly what this movie's about, but let's go through this real quick. So we had Ray Liotta, died 2 days after Uvalde. He was in a movie called Identity. And this is from the first 10 seconds of the movie. The guy's reciting a poem. As I was going up the stair, I met a man who wasn't there. He wasn't there again today. I wish he'd go away. Right? Your ghost twin here, that's what he's referring to. The very, very beginning of the movie, Identity. Ray Liotta's in it here. He's a escaped convict in the movie. It's about 10 strangers that meet in a hotel, kind of middle of nowhere during a bad storm. Anyways, so they're referring, in the beginning of the movie, they're talking about the serial killer Malcolm Rivers. And he has multiple personality disorder. He has multiple personalities. He has 10 different personalities inside of him. And he's sentenced to death for murder. And he has to overcome his 10 identities before they'll let him be free, before they'll stay his execution. And this is all about the serial killer here. Boy abandoned at the local motel, just like the abandoned biological property. Like boy abandoned at the local hospital. Child found, like all hospitals are foundling hospitals. When you identify, until you correct the situation, you're considered a ward of the state because you identify as a state-created entity. So you're a ward of the state until you correct your identity. And then when they're establishing the characters in the movie. This character is a prostitute, and when they introduce her, they show her with this guy. He has a cake on his chest. She's singing happy birthday to him, right? A reference to the placenta, and she's a prostitute. She's like the whore of Babylon. She represents the whore of Babylon. The 10 horns, which thus are 10 kings, have received no kingdom yet, right? I think this is referring to the 10 different identities in the movie. There's 10 characters that are trapped at the hotel. She's the whore of Babylon. If you have Netflix, you can just watch it on Netflix if you want. Once you know what the movie is actually about, the twin identities and the placenta and the whore of Babylon, and you can kind of, it's not too bad of a movie, really. It's kind of interesting. You can kind of pick out the symbolism from the 9 other characters. But yeah, I just want to show you guys the symbolism, the rest of the symbolism behind the Salvador shooter, with the sun symbolism, the annular eclipse, the Jesus connection, right, the annular eclipse, and the path of the X eclipses. Uvalde is misnamed, and then we had the Buffalo shooting right before that, and all the victims were about blood or cake, right, the placenta. Okay, guys, yeah, that's all I had for you. I just wanted to show you all that. It's all connected. I'd like to expand more on this when I can. There are more and more people figuring out what's going on with this twin identity, this all capital letter dead entity that's been stuck on you, that we need to get rid of, or at least come forward as this guy and stop being this guy. We'll talk more about that later, but I just want to show you the rest of the rituals with the eclipse and the misidentified, misspelled portion of these shooting rituals. So, okay, guys, thanks for watching.